Our next panel is a pretty exciting one. It's about Brightline West and the high-speed trains on the horizon. And as I'm sure many of you know all about Brightline, but I'll just say a few words just to catch everybody up. Brightline is a private company. It's a fortress company. They've already built trains in Florida and been very successful there. And they've just recently expanded to Orlando. They started in Miami to West Palm Beach. Brand new stations, brand new trains. It's a wonderful facility, wonderful experience. They really focus on the customer experience and making rail a great way to travel again in America. And now they're moving on to their second project. This is a much bigger project. This will be world-class high-speed rail. Will connect Las Vegas with the Los Angeles region. And so we're proud to introduce, we have the CEO of the company, Mike Reininger. He's the CEO and the only provider, Brightline is the only provider of modern, eco-friendly passenger service in America and recognized by Fast Company as one of the most innovative companies in travel. From 2012 to 2018, Reininger served as Brightline's president, leading efforts to launch the phase one system between Miami and Palm Beach, which I just mentioned. And then recently they just expanded to Orlando, as I said, and then their next phase in Florida will be expanding a third piece over to Tampa, which is my hometown where I'm from. So I'm excited about that coming to my home area. So with that, please welcome Mike Reininger.
Thanks, Andy. I appreciate that. Good morning, everybody. So I'm going to try to read the room here. How many people in the room have seen or ridden Brightline today? Great. Glad to see that. So we're going to talk about Brightline West, but as an entree into Brightline West, I'm going to back up just a little bit and start from our launching point, which is what is in existence today, which is Brightline, Florida. So a couple of weeks ago, we finished our last station in our original system, which is the Orlando Airport station that's a little bit. So we finished that facility and gave a preview to the media and to the local marketplace about 3 weeks ago in anticipation of the delivery of service. This morning at 6:30, we actually opened up the ticket portal and started selling tickets for the service between Miami and Orlando, and hundreds of people as of now have already purchased tickets for travel starting in. We have not yet announced the actual grand opening date, but we are already selling tickets from September 1st onward. So there's a clue as to the gap of time between now and September 1st that we'll actually initiate the full service. That is the culmination of an idea that started as a piece of paper in a room with a couple of people in 2012. And has grown and matured into an actual operating system. And some of the images of the transformation of that station in Orlando is what you see on the screen behind you now. As Andy said, we are the only privately held major company in the passenger rail business in the United States, and we were established as a company in 2014. And our business is built on the idea of providing a high-speed rail connection to cities that we define as being too long to drive and too short to fly. And what that means is our business premise is built on the idea that if you have major city pairs that are 250 to 350 miles apart, where there are established travel patterns, there is an opportunity to introduce high-speed passenger rail as the preferred alternative. It is not the only place for high-speed passenger rail in the world. It is not the only model for delivery of high-speed passenger rail in the United States, but it is our view that for private sector, for-profit engagement in the business, this is where a business thesis makes sense. It's what we have been engaged in now for over 10 years and is what we look for on the horizon as we continue to grow our business. As I said, we started building the business in 2014, and in 2018, after 4 years, we opened the business in Florida with stations in Miami, Fort Lauderdale, and West Palm Beach, and we began the expansion from West Palm Beach into Orlando, which we are now, on the doorstep of completing. We started from scratch. We are not railroaders. No one in the company, as it was originally conceived, came from this industry. But we started with a point of view that we were going to reimagine with a blank piece of paper what it means to travel by a train in the United States, given that we were the first people in a private sector mode to do this in 120 years. The last person that did it happened to be a guy named Henry Flagler, who built the original railroad upon which we used as the jumping off point for what is today Brightline, Florida. And all of the things that we've been hearing over the last 2 days about the virtues and benefits of high-speed passenger rail, mostly being discussed conceptually, no one in this room needing to be convinced about any of that stuff. We now have a living, breathing laboratory of proof that all those things are in fact real. We built our stations in highly desirable key downtown locations. We are in the middle of downtown Miami. We're in the middle of downtown Fort Lauderdale. We're in the middle of downtown West Palm Beach. We're in two important places in Boca Raton and in Aventura, which were two stations we added subsequent to the original opening. So since 2018, we've added two new stations into the system that were not on the radar when we opened in 2018. And now Orlando is on the precipice of opening. The other thing that I think is central to our business premise is, a lot of times this business is thought of and talked about in financial terms. It's thought about and talked about in engineering terms, project delivery terms, social benefit terms. We have another very important point of focus that we live and breathe by, and it is a very customer-centric, customer satisfaction dimension. In our operations control center in Miami, we have a board that has our track charts. It has the cameras of all of our security operations. It has the GPS-based locations of all of our trains. It monitors our on-time performance on a minute-to-minute basis. By the way, about a 94% on-time performance last year. But right in the middle of the screen, amongst all those other key data, is our Net Promoter Score, which, for those of you that are familiar with it, is your customer feedback on how you were doing with respect to the service that you're providing. The end of the year last year, our Net Promoter Score was 75. That puts us in the company of companies like Ritz-Carlton, as an example, as it relates to how customers perceive the product that they're receiving as a result of that. So we focus as important a dimension of success as to the customer experience as we do any of the other things that go into making one of these businesses a success. And I think that really is a central part of our overall success as a company. For some reason, this doesn't seem to be advancing. So again, all of the attributes that we've been talking about over the last few days, we have now invested approaching $6 billion into the state of Florida. And the result of that is all of the things that you've heard many times today, only in reality. Over $6.4 billion of economic impact to the state of Florida. We've added $3.5 billion to the annual GDP of the state as a result of our efforts. We've spent $2.4 billion in labor income alone. We've generated millions of dollars of annual tax revenue into the state. We created over 10,000 jobs during the construction program. We've created over 2,000 permanent jobs into the economy of the state of Florida on the back of the $6 billion that we invested into the business. And I have to say, we invested $6 billion of private money. We did not have federal assistance into the program in the state of Florida. And all along the way, we have been writing a playbook. We have been doing things that have not yet been done, and we've been making our own versions of history, including we recently ran our trains at 130 miles an hour, which is the fastest that trains have ever run in the Southeast United States. There are small pieces in the United States where trains have run modestly faster than that to date. These are certainly these are the fastest trains in the Southeast, and the only newly constructed high-speed trains that are operating. Last night, we were doing the final brake testing at 130 miles an hour over our Class 7 track section, which was the last piece of the track that we've just recently completed. And so all along the way, out of necessity, we've been knocking down these. We're the first one to do these things barriers. It's something that we're very proud of, but we're also very glad are behind us, because we now have those real world experiences that we can build on as we look to the future. So if you wonder what it looks like to see a train go 130 miles an hour, let me show you just a couple of seconds of video. These are our brand new train sets that have been running from our station, which is in the Orlando airport, out of our brand new vehicle maintenance facility, which is also located at the Orlando International Airport, on this new infrastructure that runs along the side of a state highway program. And when you see 1 million pounds moving at 130 miles an hour, it is a formidable sight. It's quite an exhilarating thing to happen. And so, like, we look forward to the next stage of our evolution when we add about 50 miles an hour to that speed as we approach Brightline West. So stay tuned for an opening date to get on that train and feel for yourself what it feels like to move in a train at 130 miles an hour on your way to Miami, or on your way back from Miami up to Orlando. So let me turn from that to Brightline West, which is our second initiative. I'm going to skip through this. So there was a question asked earlier today that there wasn't a definitive answer to. Let me be more definitive. There will be a train in the United States operating in excess of 186 miles an hour in the very near future. And when we are complete with Brightline West in the very near future, we will be the first and only true high-speed rail project operating in the United States, and that will happen in 2028. It is a 218-mile system that is being constructed within the median of the I-15 highway corridor. It is an all-electric system that will link Southern California to the city of Las Vegas, a market that today experiences about 50 million annual one-way trips. 85% of those trips are people driving that road, and the other 15% are people that are driving, or they're taking airplanes, about 120 flights a day from the various Southern California airports into Las Vegas today. 50 million people a year. We're going to offer the alternative of being able to do that in a train that will exceed 186 miles an hour. We have invested to date over $600 million of entirely private funding into acquiring all of the critical land and completing the right-of-way from endpoint stations for the entire system. We have that under control today. We are complete with the entire environmental permitting process. We are awaiting publishing of the final record of decision, which is expected very soon. The process associated with the environmental reviews has been completed. Those permits will be issued in the very near future. And we have been advancing our engineering, construction contracting, and planning for the entirety of the system, whether it's stations, trains, infrastructure, over the last couple of years, so that we are legitimately shovel ready, so that we can proceed with the project very, very quickly. We have recently applied for a $3.75 billion grant through the Fed State Partnership Program. That represents, importantly, about 70% of the $12 billion project that our system represents. Represents 30% of the $12 billion project. The other 70% of the project is going to be private investment by our company again. So it is a completely different model than many of the other programs that we've been talking about over the last 2 days. And we believe it is the only fully shovel-ready project that can be delivered in short order in the United States. We are prepared to break ground in this calendar year, at the end of the year, and we are prepared to be open with an operating system in time for the opening ceremonies of the 2028 LA Olympics. Think about the idea of the Los Angeles Olympics having venues shared and hotel rooms shared between the Los Angeles metropolitan area and the Las Vegas metropolitan area. Imagine watching a game in Allegiant Stadium, getting on a train and going and watching another event in Southern California in the same day. It will be a remarkable showcase. And when you talk about why is America not where the rest of the country is, if you were gonna come out and put yourself on the stage, is there a better way to do that than at the opening ceremonies of the 28 Olympics? And that is our objective. The system will be effectively a 3-station system. There will be a station in Los Angeles in Rancho Cucamonga, at the existing Metrolink station in San Bernardino County. We will have a midpoint station in Victor Valley, and then we'll have our other terminal in Las Vegas on the Strip. We have acquired the land for all of the stations and all the facilities necessary to put our system into program. The infrastructure itself is virtually entirely built within the median, as I said earlier, of the I-15 corridor. Part of our big picture strategy of leveraging existing transportation corridors as part of the equation for delivering these systems faster and with an economic proposition that is more manageable than other delivery programs. It is part of our central business thesis. We are leveraging every bit of existing and proven high-speed rail technology in the world. And at the end of the day, this is a 218-mile trip that we'll be able to make in about 2 hours and 10 minutes. And we think we can carry about 11 million passengers annually on the system that we'll be putting into place. As it stands today, we've been working very hard and have positioned the project to be aligned with all of the key priorities of the Biden administration and the Department of Transportation as to their overall priorities for the visions of high-speed rail and a network of high-speed rail in the United States. This will be an American-built product by American labor. We feel the necessity of kickstarting the development of a robust high-speed rail industry in the United States with our $12 billion project. And today we have structured arrangements with organized labor to both construct the program in its entirety using organized labor through an agreement that we've crafted with the construction trades. Over 10,000 field jobs will be from that labor pool. And recently we've come to an arrangement where we will actually operate the business using unionized labor. Over 900 operations jobs will all be operated through a union agreement that we've crafted. We think it will be the greenest form of transportation anywhere in the world. It is an all-electric system. We're working with Southern Cal Edison. The power generation into the network that we will power our trains and system with will be renewable power. So it will be as green a system of transportation we think that exists anywhere in the world. And importantly, we think this will finally plant the flag for what high-speed rail in America can and should look like. One of the most important things that we learned in Florida is it's only partially effective to get people to get excited about what you're doing, believe that it can be done, and support what it is that you're doing while you're showing them renderings and talking to them about conceptual ideas and theoretical outcomes that they can't see, that they can't feel, that seem like they're a long time from now in the future. But let me tell you, when you bring them into a shiny new station and you let them order themselves a nice drink and you bring them a great canapé and it smells great in the facility and you let their butts hit this leather seat in a very comfortable ride, the conversation gets a whole lot easier. We believe the future of the industry in the United States is going to be built on the back of somebody putting a new system into operation and showing people the actual virtues as opposed to just talking about them and showing renderings. And that's why we've been so driven around the timeframes of getting this stuff done. And that's why we think this is an important initiative, not only for us as a company, but we think that everybody else in this industry will be benefited by somebody being first. And that's what we've decided to sort of take the lead on. I like to call this slide the merit badge slide. Like all the very same things that we saw happen in Florida, we are certain will happen in the West and in spades, like to a higher magnitude of quantum, just because it's an investment of twice as many dollars. It's just that simple. On top of that, it is greener, and it is the creation of an entire new industry in the United States, relative to the high-speed nature of it. So I'll give you a few more images, and then I'll sort of stop talking here. But this is a fully integrated program for us from soup to nuts. We're designing everything, we're building everything, we own everything, we operate everything. This is an image of the Las Vegas station as it has been designed. We acquired 110 acres on the Las Vegas Strip. We are at the southern end of the Strip. Our property is bounded by the I-15 corridor on the right-hand side of this image. The red lights you see are taillights on I-15. The other boundary of our property is the Las Vegas Strip, and our trains will stop alongside I-15, and our front door will face the famous Las Vegas Strip. So literally, you'll be able to get out of the train out into a public plaza and onto all of the virtues that Las Vegas as a metroplex has to offer. So from the ground and from inside the station, this is a little bit about what you can expect that to look like in Las Vegas. We have a smaller station in Victor Valley where we've acquired about 300 acres. We're building a secondary vehicle maintenance and right-of-way maintenance facility in Victor Valley, sort of in the middle of the system, so that we can respond quickly to sort of maintenance activities, but we can also pick up passengers at Victor Valley. And we talked about the High Desert Corridor Connect, and ultimately this is the place that the High Desert Corridor connection would actually be able to make an inroads into our overall system. And with 300 acres of land that we've acquired, we have the room to be able to make that happen in the future. And then our other terminus is at the Rancho Cucamonga station. It's on about 5 acres of property that we've acquired. And importantly, and as you can see here, I like to call our station here the Bird's Nest. Our train platforms are elevated, in this station, similar to the way they are in Miami today. And they're elevated here because we're fully integrated with the existing Metrolink system. So a passenger on Brightline could come from Las Vegas, get off the train here, go down a set of escalators and across a platform onto a Metrolink train that goes from this station all the way into LA Union. with an 8-stop link. So people say, where in Los Angeles are you connecting? I like to say there is no such thing as Los Angeles. There are many Los Angeleses. The interesting thing about this particular line of Metrolink is it connects to 8 of those Los Angeleses along the way, right? Including one that everybody gets very familiar with in terms of downtown LA and LA Union Station. So this broader topic of intermodality is something that we have been a believer in and have worked hard from day one in Florida. And from the beginning here in Brightline West, we've sort of embedded that into the ethos. And so the idea of us being able to cross-ticket, cross-promote, and more importantly, have a direct link for somebody getting on at LA Union Station and winding up about 2.5 hours later on the strip in Las Vegas is part of the value proposition that is central to the idea that we're talking about. And so this is another view of the connection between a parking facility that's shared between Metrolink and ourselves as you access the trains and the lounge facilities that exist in the Bird's Nest, which is sitting on top of the trains in this instance, in the similar way that it does in Miami. We have been in a procurement process for quite some time. We've narrowed this down into to a competition between 2 providers. They're in the room today. We're moving towards making a very important decision about that. These, as I said earlier, these are true high-speed rail trains. That's a non-starter for us. That is something that is essential to us, and we're in deep discussions with both Alstom and Siemens about bringing these first of their kind trains into America, built in America as well. So for us, it's as much a labor of love as it is a business venture. The guy that I work for was recently quoted as saying, people think that this is some kind of a get rich quick scheme. And in fact, it's a get rich very, very, very slowly scheme. But we're incredibly proud of the behavior changes and the proof points that we've been able to deliver in Florida. For those of you that didn't raise your hand earlier, it's time to book your train trip and come out and see what it's all about. We're not very successful in describing it to people effectively. And as oftentimes as we've tried to do that, every time that I've talked to somebody and then they've experienced it, the feedback that we get is you didn't quite explain it properly. We didn't get it until we did it. So I would encourage you to see our brand of what it means to travel by train in America coming to a Western pair of cities very, very soon. So thank you for your attention on that today.
Thank you so much, Mike. And please thank your boss, Wes, for being such a visionary pioneer and helping America to finally get moving on this in a quick way and establishing such a high bar of the experience and especially the customer experience. That seems to me one of the most important things. I'm going to turn it over to Alan. He's our moderator. I'll say real quickly, he's a senior editor at Forbes magazine, and he's done numerous stories about Brightline. So please, Alan, take it away.
Morning, thank you. It sounds like I'm on. So this has been a fascinating event for me so far. I do cover advanced transportation and clean technology and have written a fair bit about Brightline the last couple of years. So it's great to see things sort of advancing at this point. Mike, you quoted Wes Edens, sort of the guy behind all of this at Brightline, about getting rich slowly. At the Orlando station opening, you used another Wes quote where he said, you're getting the pioneer premium here, mud in the face and arrows in your back when you're going first. Talk a little bit about that. This is going to be, it seems, if all goes well to plan, the first high-speed rail system in the United States that people can ride and see. Is there a lot of pressure at this point about delivering on this rather big promise?
Yeah, of course, right? Like there are days that we feel the weight of the world on our back, right? For lots of reasons. Like let's just start with, we're talking about billions of dollars, right? And this is private investment. So this is money that others have entrusted in us to put to work and get back. So yeah, sure. There's clear pressures about performance, in that regard. We have been blessed with some incredibly supportive partners, from the capital world that have believed in what we've been talking about for a long time. And every time we make progress, every time we eliminate one of the infinite numbers of risks that were on the table when we started, we gain a little bit of credibility, right? And at this point, we sort of own the franchise in terms of the playbook for a way to get this done that people can start to believe in, because there's a proof point, there's evidence.
Last month, the company submitted its very lengthy grant request to the FRA, and you're seeking $3.75 billion. and you're hoping that that's going to get greenlit fairly soon. In the event that you don't get the entire amount, say you only get half of what you're asking for, how does that affect your business plan if it's somewhat less than you'd like it to?
And we don't want to entertain those possibilities today. We built our grant request was, I think, 4,500 pages. It was 4,500 pages because we uncovered everything we could find. We identified the issues and we solved the issues in a way that was fully consistent with everybody's objectives. Again, whether it has to do with labor, it had to do with manufacturing in the United States, whether it had to do with climate change, you name it. We found a solution that supported every single one of those initiatives. All of those things in the aggregate, for sure, add cost to the program, add complication to the program, and add time to the delivery of the program. And so in the aggregate, we think we've come up with a very efficient endgame solution at $12 billion, right? $55 million a mile, that actually delivers everything that everybody wants to see happen. And the economics of that business require a boost of $3.75 billion. So those things work in tandem. If you want all the ornaments on the Christmas tree, then you have to be prepared to fund the totality of the operation. And I'm going to go back to the important quote, right? The grant request is 30% of the capital stack. The other 70% is people putting their own money at risk behind this business, right? That is a meaningful commitment on the part of everyday Americans into the fulfillment of everything that we've been talking about for the last few days.
And one other just sort of general question. Your approach at Brightline is interesting and distinct from, say, the way the California High-Speed Rail project is going, because you're building almost entirely at grade in an existing highway corridor. That does make it faster, easier, a little cheaper to build. But you have run into some issues with that. For example, there is the wildlife crossing thing that came up. So now you have to bake in some land bridges or crossing points for wildlife to get through. Are there any other sort of unexpected developments that have happened over the last several months as you're finalizing the project and getting ready to build that you hadn't anticipated?
No. Of course, right? Sure, all the time, right? That is the pioneer premium, right? But as is the case with the wildlife crossings, the issue came up. It has to do with the desire to create crossings so that bighorn sheep in California have an ability to cross the I-15 corridor without being endangered by the traffic of the I-15 corridor. That exists, and that we will be in the middle of, but a desire and a problem nonetheless. And so we worked with the state of California and the Fish and Wildlife Commission in California, and worked out an arrangement where we will jointly work together to fund and build those wildlife crossings. So this is an example of a problem that pre-existed Brightline as a solution that got addressed in the context of what we were doing, because it was able to be attached to what we were doing. And we worked together with the state and found a solution that, by everybody picking up a rock and carrying it, we figured out a way to move that mountain. So that happens all the time, right? That is our nature. And that's how we've addressed things like all along.
Speed, it's not just the speed with which you want trains to move. Your construction timetable is really aggressive. You want to move really fast. Keith, your job is to sort of help make that happen. And I was fascinated to learn a little bit when we spoke before about how you're doing that. But you're going to build a mile a day of track. You can get that fast, and you're going to have 4 construction points along the route. Can you sort of give the 10,000-foot view of how this is going to happen so fast?
Yeah. So thank you for that question. It's a true statement. We're out supporting Brightline in Florida, delivering a very aggressive schedule that was out there. And then I've been on this project for 3 years now, and when I initially heard the schedule of a 4-year construction project going 220 route miles, I was like, whoa. So when you boil it all down and you look at all the components that need to be constructed, right? The civil components to the track, to the systems components and whatnot in a 4-year schedule, it basically allots us 1 year to construct the track. And so we've had to, it's been alluded to in this conference, like this, the standardization, modularity of construction, right? We have had to go and take our expertise and go throughout the world and look at other projects that have had to deliver in similar fashions, right? And we've done that. And you're correct. We've broken this project down into pieces and parts, and mainly there's we're working with the Class 1 railroads with connection points to bring in materials to feed this operation. This thing's been broken down into 3 main headings, essentially 3 different projects to deliver that. And amongst those 3 projects, a mile of track has to be completed every day. Get this thing built in it's 270 miles of track, so you got 270 days. So there's your year of construction if you take weekends and holidays out.
And what does that look like? Like if I'm driving to Vegas on the 15 and I see, construction happening, what am I going to see on that drive?
You're going to see equipment that is every day is a half mile further down. It's going to move very quickly. You're going to see an operation that probably spans about 12 to 15 miles, right? To make sure that every part of our production can be very productive to make these sorts of productions. Just going back really quick, when I first got asked to come out here and be a part of this project, and by the way, I appreciate it. What they were asking to be built in a year, I've been in this industry for 20 years, and my whole career has been open ballast track construction. And this is more track in 1 year that I've built in my 20 years of construction. So it was overwhelming, right? But when you break it down to its pieces and parts, it's doable. We're very confident, and Brightline has leveraged our expertise to go out and solve this, and we've been very appreciative to be part of it.
What are we talking about in terms of the volume of steel track and everything? Like, how do you, in terms of big numbers, what?
Yeah, it's a great question. 70,000 tons of rail, 2.4 billion or 2.4 million tons of ballast, 750,000 ties. Like it's yeah. Those are if you know anything about rail construction, those are impressive numbers.
And you're saying, the actual, your job is about a year of construction to complete that. In terms of the prep work before you start laying track, what's happening?
So we're setting up all of the support mechanisms to support that track construction, right? So while we're waiting to get ownership of the right of way, which, there's a lot of civil work, drainage, underground grade structures that have to be built to support the track, right? And all that. While all that's happening, we're building the support mechanisms, yards, and in of themselves, they're substantial construction projects to support that 1 year of construction to meet this very aggressive schedule.
So that prep work, that's going to be, what are you talking about, like 18 months or so?
It'll be about a year and a half.
A year and a half for that. And then you're estimating actual construction, you want to be done in a year with the 271 miles.
Yep.
18. But then what's the added chunk?
Well, there's some double track in there
I see
for passing sightings and whatnot, right? So,
I assume that you have some pretty firm contractual deadlines to meet those timetables too.
Yes. Yes, we do.
Peter, switching over here to the labor side, how did this relationship actually take root? Where your organization is working with Brightline and you've become fully supportive of the program?
So this project, just to be clear, this has been a long-term project, and years in the making, right? Desert Express, all that. And it was about a year and a half ago where, we got a connection through US High Speed Rail to Brightline to sit down and just kind of talk about the concept and whether or not we could work together to bring this to reality. And so as we sat down and we engaged with one another, we continue to find that our interests intersected in many ways. We both want to see a new site of transportation come to this country. We both want to see great paying union jobs in this country and create economic, multipliers, so to speak, in the communities that these people will not only work, but live. And so at the end of the day, we were able to form this partnership that I think is going to be extremely beneficial to, not just Brightline, but all the working class people in the country that live in that region, and also to this country to see the first high-speed rail project get done. Actually, not just be talking about it in conferences, getting it done. And we're proud to be a part of that.
Mike, just going back to this question about this project being sort of a catalyst for high-speed rail in the United States.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously California is already in construction, but your timetable is a lot faster, so people are going to see it, ride it sooner. How big a deal does the company think that that's going to be, like to have an actual high-speed system in operation?
I mean, as I said, I think that is the inflection point. That is what changes the conversation forevermore, right? It's going to be a conversation until it's a ride, and it'll be a do loop until something actually breaks inertia and produces the ability for somebody to get on. And it is our experience. Like So we built the system in Florida with 3 stations. Almost immediately upon opening those 3 stations, 2 cities came to us and said, okay, stop, we get it. How do we get a station in our city, in the spots in between where our existing cities were? And today we still are in conversations with another and another and another. It's like, okay, now we get it. How do we get one of those? That is in contrast to, in the early days, we felt every headwind. We felt every skepticism that exists, for any kind of an infrastructure project. The common wisdom is like, it is going to take too long, it is going to cost too much, and it is going to be a nightmare, in every way possible. I don't like those things. Until you put cotton in your ears and get to work and do it. And then suddenly the attitudinal shift is pretty remarkable. It's not only the attitudinal shift, the behavioral shift. Like, it's always been, will Americans get out of their cars? Americans love their cars. Like, they're never going to ride a train. We're Americans. We love our cars. Except when they don't, which is when they're stuck in their car on a clogged roadway, and they're paying, whatever it is at the time, $3-4 a gallon of gas. And, and all those pain points of driving your car come to reality, right? This isn't Eisenhower's era, right? Gas isn't 25 cents a gallon. The road systems are not brand new and, full of plenty of capacity. They're overtaxed, and, it's a different economic proposition today. So they love their cars a lot less, and they'll love it even less when you give them an alternative that's better. In all respects, it's faster, it's cheaper, it's more reliable, it's greener, it's all of those things, but you have to prove it. So when we reopened our service in Florida post-COVID, okay, we redid our ridership study to say, okay, the world has changed. Like, what should our benchmark of expectation be today? We did our first year of operation in 2019. We did 1 million passengers on our 67-mile system. The ridership study told us we should do about 1.1 million. So within 10%, first time ever, Americans love their cars, victory, right? Within 10% of a ridership projection out of the box, declare victory. Redo the ridership study, post-COVID world, nobody goes to the office, everybody stays at home. Like, what's going to happen? Ridership study said, you'll do about 700,000 people last year. It's what we've heard, right? Transit is down, like the ridership has not come back post-COVID. 700,000 is what you should expect in your second operating year. We did just under 1.4 million people, almost twice what the ridership study said. First quarter of this year, we did over 500,000 people in 2023. We're basically having a record month every month. 2 weekends ago, we had 3 days in a row where we did our record number of ridership and revenue in sequence in our Miami system. And as I said, by the time I got here this morning at 9:30, hundreds of people had already gotten on the website and booked tickets to Orlando from 6:30 in the morning to 9:30 in the morning. So behavior actually changes when there is, when it's actionable, right? Instead of a dream and an aspiration. And so that's why we are so focused on getting this to happen, getting it to happen now. And we think it'll be the inflection point. Selfishly, we think there are more than just 2 opportunities in the country for doing what we do. And we think that what we're going to do, we're going to facilitate other things. We can't wait for the day that California's program connects into our program and beyond, right? But you got to get, somebody's got to be first.
Keith, given the scale of the construction work that's going to be happening along a very busy freeway corridor between LA and Vegas, how are you planning to make sure that traffic is not affected, which is already terrible on the 15? How are you designing the construction so that you will not really interfere with the normal flow of traffic on the freeway?
A great question. It's when you talk about the from the civil to track and all the systems components that are going on, and the reality in a 4-year schedule, all that stuff is really happening simultaneously, right? It's just in time delivery for us getting on a building track. So civil is moving out of our ways, and we're building right behind them, and so there's complexities there that even they drive, to build their own work, right? And so what we have elected to do is utilize the railroad that we're building as a way to deliver our materials, to take all of that off the roadway and to deliver that via the railroad that we're building. It supports the modular construction. And so that's what we've done. We're trying to take all that off the road and just get that down through the railroad that we're building on a daily basis.
So it's interesting that, our partners in this are Nevada Department of Transportation and Caltrans, right? They're right of way that we're building in. So they're laser focused on this particular topic. If you go underneath the actual rail to the civil work, there's nearly as much highway work in this job as there is rail work. Widening lanes, improving off ramps, rebuilding bridges in order to accommodate the needs of of the rail corridor that we need to be building. And so at the end of the day, not only do we have to be hypersensitive to the view of the departments of transportation, who are sort of is their purview to make sure that these roads are safe and contiguous, but we're actually taking on the burden of improvements to their road system that we need to do in order to get what we need in order to lay our rail corridor. So that's another one of the sort of tertiary benefits out of doing it the way that we're doing, is that we are actually improving the base road system as a consequence of putting in the rail corridor.
Peter, can you walk me through what are the range of jobs that you think are going to be created for your members, and how many permanent jobs are you anticipating as a result of this project?
So they're going to have 1,000 or 900 to 1,000 roughly permanent jobs for operating once the building trades get done constructing this project. And in this industry, or in the freight and commuter and passenger rail industry, there's roughly 13 unions that represent about 160,000 workers, and we have multiple crafts. Some unions have multiple crafts within their own union. That can pose a challenge, obviously, as a employer with a new project coming up. They're a passenger line or a high-speed rail line is not exactly the same as a freight line. And so there's going to be different demands, different requirements. Those things will all be addressed, after we organize them. When we try to organize Brightline, our goal, just to be clear, Brightline came to us and they said, hey, we want to use union labor. We want to respect workers' rights to select their representation. And so, let's become partners, and you guys can try and organize them, and we'll make this project work. And so you're going to have multiple unions going out there, and we're going to work together to try and make this work for Brightline and for the people that are going to use it. Now, you're going to have engineers, conductors, you're going to have maintenance away, which is the industry I come in. I think the first place I'm going to organize is Peace House, because he's got 7 kids, and that's a good section gang. That's a section gang for us. But you have Brotherhood of Railway Signalmen, you have electrical workers, you have NCF&O, you have all these different specialized trades that it takes to run a railroad, it takes to maintain a railroad. And you're going to see a lot of that come to light here in the next couple of years. I'm excited. All rail labor is excited about this project. I think the whole country is excited about it, frankly, anybody that knows that this is going on, because they can see the benefits that it's going to create, both work-wise, economically. And I know that the Biden administration is extremely excited about this sort of project as well, because, they call him our president Amtrak Joe for a reason, and maybe he's going to be Brightline Joe when this is done.
Mike, one more quick one. So Rancho Cucamonga from Union Station, it's about a 50-minute trip on Metrolink, something like that, give or take. What is the likelihood that once you're open, you'll have the capability to maybe run a promotional train once or twice a day all the way into downtown LA?
So, boy, that's the dream, right? In order to do that, that Metrolink corridor needs to be electrified, and probably one of the difficult sort of long-term infrastructure challenges is the neck of the corridor that goes into Union Station. It gets very, very narrow. It's not electrified, and the sort of reorganization of Union Station is a big deal. Step by step, right? Let's get the trains to Rancho first, and then let's get people. We're working very closely with Metrolink, so we're working on things like coordinating our schedules so that the arrival times of trains into Rancho match the departure times of our trains, so there can be a quick connect in both directions. They don't necessarily run trains 7 days a week now. They're talking about adding service. We think we'll drive some 3 million incremental rides into their system. That's important revenue to support the public transportation system in Metrolink. We're likely to take space in Union Station for a passenger service operation. Probably take bags from people in Union Station and handle them, and you'll pick them back up in Las Vegas and vice versa. So the cooperation with Metrolink has been very, very, very close and very supportive. And each one of these little things goes a long way. We will be able to share ticketing applications in our application, with Metrolink. You'll be able to one-stop shop, buy that ticket on our application, the same way that today you can buy a ticket in Florida and get ground transportation in a one transaction event on our ticketing platform. Like, all that stuff is learning that we can now simply export into this program. I was gonna also share one story which I burned into my memory banks when we talk about the sort of our relationship with labor. It wasn't that long ago. It was a few months ago. We were down the block in I think it's called the President's Conference Room in the AFL-CIO headquarters. And it was an introductory meeting that Peter and I saw Jeff yesterday, whether I don't know if he's here this morning or not, had arranged for us. And it was myself and one colleague. And we walked into a room to meet the heads of 13 labor unions that we've never met before. And there were two of us and 22, 23 people on the other side, literally on the other side of the table. This is the AFL-CIO headquarters, right? To say I was a little intimidated in that moment would be an understatement, but we walk in and there's two of us and 22 of those. And I looked at my colleague and I said, so it's going to be zone defense. And that the way that conversation went down is it started with a little bit of an edge, and they told us what their priorities were and what their sensitivities were and all of that sort of stuff. And we like absorbed all of that. And then we said, we're still here, we're still in this. But let us tell you what our priorities are and what's essential to our ability to be successful. Because if we can't do these certain things in the way that we do them, we won't be successful. And if we're not successful, any arrangement that we work out here kind of won't be the precedent that is necessary for the building of the industry. And it had to do with how we serve our customers and all those sorts of things and what was important to how we operate as it relates to our labor relations. And then we asked them if they would come to Florida and like see it for themselves because of what I said earlier. We're not very good at explaining it to people. We're much better at showing. And in fact, they took us up on it. And like, I don't know, 20 something people came to Florida and we did a full day tour. We went to the stations, we went to the maintenance facilities, we rode the train and, they like saw for themselves how we did it. And on the back of that, there was a common understanding. Like, okay, we see what you need. We know, what we need. We think we can get this done. And so, we got to start not from like 100 years of railroad legacy, but we started from a new place, for how we approach this, not necessarily as a railroad company, but as a consumer product sort of service company. And that's been the basis of how we got here today. And I think it's actually pretty remarkable.
Well, if I could add to that, we, as Mike said earlier, we did have some skeptic people within our group about whether this would work. And look, we're, like I said, the majority of our members are covered under the freight railroads, and in the freight industry, when we go to sit down in the seat, we're used to them pulling it out from underneath us. But when we met with Brightline and we went and sat down in the seat on the train, it was a whole different experience. And the level of courtesy, the professionalism of the staff on the train, the service, the elegance of it. You walk into a station, you're not confused, you're not lost. People greet you with a smile. It's very simple to get in and out of. It has its own scent. I mean, everything to the design and everything. It was just something we've never been exposed to, and so it made believers out of all of us. And again, we're absolutely excited. Like Mike said earlier, if you haven't been down there, get to Florida, go check out their system. It's amazing.
Well, on that note, we started late and we've run a little long, and I think everyone wants to get to lunch. So unfortunately, we have to skip Q&A. But panel, thank you very much. Very interesting.